Hey there, you fabulous folks. I hope your day has been absolutely awesome. We're back for another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Golden Devil. A big shout out to the amazing author behind this fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find their details in the description box below. If this what if scenario is getting your imagination going, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to explore more mind-blowing what ifs on the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's jump right into this video. So this is the familiar forest. Ashiya asked as she looked at the forest surrounding them. The giant magical circle under them slowly disappeared. It's a lot spookier than I thought it would be, Mito commented as she moved closer to Ashiya as they studied the area. Even Naruto had to admit the forest definitely fit being part of the devil territory. The trees were just bark and had no sign of green anywhere. The moonlight above them was a crimson red that spread throughout the area. As they looked around with a wary look, it's almost like something's going to come out from the shadows and attack us. You don't have to worry, Akeno said as she smiled at the four devils. Quite a few people get that feeling when they come here for the first time. Every devil comes here in order to get their familiars, and to do that we should meet up with the familiar master. Ryuz commented as she and Naruto lowered their arms. The circle under the two of them completely disappeared. We came here ourselves when we received ours as well. Kiba added with a smile. Kaneko nodded her head in agreement. Mito looked up at the sky to see the moon was emanating a strange crimson red light. So is a red moon normal? Only for this area during the full moon, it makes it easier for devils to acquire familiars. Ryuz explained while Akeno moved to stand next to her. It's definitely an interesting place, Naruto said as he looked around. Saber appeared on his shoulder as she studied the forest as well. I'm glad that we were able to use that spell to bring all of us here. What was that spell you and Bucho were doing before, Naruto-senpai? Issei asked with curiosity as he and the others watched the glowing seals on their wrists slowly die down. You see Issei, under normal circumstances only one peerage can enter the familiar forest at a time. But this spell helps bend the rules a bit, Naruto explained as he showed the House of Gremory symbol to the brunette. This spell temporarily binds our two families together, and by doing this the both of us can enter the forest at the same time. Really? Wait a moment, Issei blinked a few times as a thought came to mind. How come we couldn't do that with the student council as well, instead of having those matches? That's because the spell can only be used on two families at a time, Ryuz answered before looking around. Never mind that now, he should be around here somewhere. Who are you talking about? Welcome to the familiar forest. A voice came from above them. The group looked up to see a man standing on one of the tree branches. There's quite a few of you, it's nice to meet you all. The name's Zataoji, the familiar master. So this is the guy you were talking about, huh? Naruto spoke up as he stared at the old man in his youthful attire. He looks like one of those characters from that one cartoon, what was it called again? Poke something. He might not look like much, but he's a professional. Akeno replied with a smile as they watched the man leap off the branch and walk to the group. There are very few familiars he can't catch. Really? Mito said as she blinked, that's kinda cool. Tonight's the perfect time to get a good familiar, the full moon is at its best. Zataoji smirked as he looked up at the red moon before looking back down to the group. Now then, what kind of familiar are you interested in? One with incredible strength? A speed type? Or maybe one with poison ability? Do you have any cute ones? A familiar that looks like a girl to more precise? Issei asked the man, who wagged his finger in the brunette's face. TSK, you newbies can't do it right. You want familiars to be useful and strong. Zataoji made a fist in his hand as he moved into a pose, that is to say, you must know their abilities and chose one that complements your own. Well, he knows what he's talking about at least. Right, Saber? Naruto spoke in amusement to his companion through their mental link, though the little spirit didn't reply as she formed in the air next to him. Saber. Are you okay? Saber. The tiny girl perked up at her master's voice and turned in his direction. I'm sorry Naruto-sama, did you say something? Naruto blinked a few times before narrowing his eyes a bit. Is something wrong? I'm not sure, I just got this strange feeling as soon as we arrived, I can't really explain it. Saber brought a hand to her chest over her heart. Whatever it is Naruto-sama, the feeling may pass soon, let's just focus on getting familiars for Ashiya-san and the others. Naruto stared at Saber for a few seconds before nodding his head. Alright, but tell me if it gets worse. After seeing Saber nod at her head with a smile, he turned back to see Zataoji was moving over to Ashiya and Mito, not noticing Saber's hand clenched a little tighter on her clothing. So how about you two? The familiar master asked the two young girls while placing his hands on his hips. I don't really know what kind of familiar I want. Mito answered in an honest tone as she shyly moved closer to Ashiya. I'd like to get a cute familiar please, if it is possible. Ashiya said with a smile, and in an instant Zataoji's attitude changed completely. Sure thing baby. The man gave the Ashiya a thumbs up with flushed cheeks, making a few of the observers sweat drop. Anything for a cute girl like you. Hold on. What about all that stuff you were saying before? Issei questioned as he stared at the familiar master with a twitching eyebrow. Let's get going. I know one good place where quite a number of familiars are located. Zataoji ignored the brunette as he started to lead the group towards one direction. Well, in the center of a giant lake, a lone female figure slowly rose from the water. The figure continued until her bare feet stood on the surface. Small ripples formed around her as she stood there. She had long blonde hair that reached to her lower back and eyes as blue as the deepest oceans. She was wearing a long, elegant white and ocean blue gown that reached down to her feet. Staring into a seemingly random direction, she spoke to herself with a smile. I believe it's time to call them here. Now come, my beloved sheath and devil of light. With a deep breath, the woman's body began to glow a little, and then, she started to sing. Back to the group. So how many familiars are in this forest anyway? Naruto asked Zataoji as they walked past several large trees and were slowly moving towards the lake. That's actually hard to say. I've caught so many that I've lost count. The familiar master answered while rubbing the back of his head, and there were actually a lot that are already living here. There are a few that are pretty strong and still don't have masters, and there are some that devils are too afraid to even go near. Like the 9-headed hydra, it had an incredibly dangerous poison. I actually had thoughts about having someone in my peerage making it their familiar. Rhea said as she joined in the conversation. I wouldn't recommend it. Zataoji had a serious expression on his face. That specific familiar is evil enough to attack and kill its master. That's why there are only a few alive now. They were killed off until only a certain amount were left. There really are different varieties of familiars, huh? Issei spoke out loud as he imagined a creature that would turn on its owner. The familiar master turned around and continued to lead them further on. There have been a few hydras that have been completely tamed by a very select few devils, though I can actually count them on one hand. It's kind of sad act too. Naruto stopped mid-sentence and mid-step as he started to hear someone singing. It was a beautiful voice. Who's singing that? Singing? What are you talking about, Naruto-senpai? Kiba asked as he and the others looked at the older male blonde. Can you hear it? It sounds like a woman. Naruto looked around. This seemed familiar somehow. I don't hear anything. Issei blinked before he strained his ears. Are you sure you hear something, senpai? Me neither, Ashia said with Mito and Kaneko nodding their heads. Could it be a familiar? Akeno questioned as she brought a hand up to her cheek as she gained a thoughtful expression. It is possible. There might indeed be a familiar in the forest trying to communicate in a way that only he can hear. However, the familiar master turned around and walked up to Naruto. There are many different types of creatures in this forest, so who knows what is calling out to you. I am not ashamed to admit that there are still creatures that I'm still continuing to discover. More and more new kinds of familiars are revealed in this world with each passing decade. Maybe we'll take a look after we get Issei and Ashia-chan their familiars first. Is that alright with you, Naruto-kun? Ryuz asked the blonde male, who shook his head a bit before turning to her. I guess so, Saber. Naruto watched as the small spirit seemed to be zoning out again, but this time she had a strange look on her face. Can you hear it too, Saber? Amazing, so it's something that Saber-san can hear as well. Ashia said as everyone stared at Saber, who still hadn't moved her gaze. Saber-san, are you okay? The small spirit said nothing for the first few seconds before her body started to tremble. It can't be, this is definitely her voice, Naruto, and the others were surprised to see tears building up in Saber's eyes, as she snapped towards a certain direction. It's coming from over there. What are you talking about, Saber? What's over there? Naruto didn't get an answer as the spirit leaped off his shoulder and spread her wings as far as they could go, taking off at a fast speed into the forest. Wait, Saber. Where are you going? Naruto shouted before running after her. Naruto-kun, hold on. Ryuz exclaimed as she watched Naruto run. Continue looking for your familiars, I'll be back. Naruto shouted back as his image started to vanish. The others could do nothing as he disappeared from their sight. You and Akeno keep an eye on everyone until I get back. Mito was just about to follow after her brother when Ryuz placed a hand on her shoulder. Ryuz-senpai. The older Ridit shook her head. As much as I'd rather go with him as well, whatever seems to be calling out to him, and Saber is for them alone, and Saber seems to know what that something is. All we can do now is wait for them to come back. I wonder if you could follow if you did go. The devils turned to Zataoji, who was rubbing his chin in thought. It's interesting that he and that little spirit of his are going in that direction. Because for almost 2 months now, none of the familiars have gotten close to a specific area, almost as if they're trying to avoid it. That made a few of them look back in the direction Naruto went. What exactly could be over there that could cause the familiars to avoid such a large area? With Naruto. Saber, hold on. Naruto shouted as he had been chasing after his partner for the past few minutes now, but she didn't seem to listen, as she only increased her speed, as she continued to avoid tree after tree. Narrowing his eyes a bit, Naruto increased his own speed. Enough of this. In an instant, Naruto appeared right behind Saber and quickly grabbed her, making sure her wings were held in his grip just in case. The tiny girl realized she wasn't moving anymore and started to fidget in his grip, trying to free herself. Let me go, Naruto-sama. Not until you calm yourself down and tell me what's going on. Naruto replied as he watched the girl continue to try and escape his hold. Saber, what exactly is? Please Naruto. Saber interrupted as she finally looked up at him, startling him as he could see tears falling down her cheeks. The last time she had been this emotional was when they first met. The fact that she called him by his name without the sama was a shock as well. Whatever it she was trying to reach, it must be important. I need to see her. Her? Who are you talking about? Tell me what's going on right now, because you just raced off somewhere in a dangerous and an unknown area. With who knows how many. Naruto halted his sentence as he realized something. They had been running in a single direction of the forest, and they hadn't come across a single familiar. Just what the hell this? I thought Satoji said this forest was filled with familiars. Why haven't we run into anything? It's most likely because of her. Naruto looked down to see that Saber had finally started to calm down. Though her head was low as she continued to speak, the familiars in the area will stay clear of her, as long as she resides in this area. Who are you talking about, Saber? Please, just tell me. Naruto-sama, I know you know the Arthurian legends, correct? About how King Arthur obtained both me and Excalibur, and the one who gave us to him. Naruto could only stare down at Saber with wide eyes as she raised her head. The goddess that worked with God himself, into creating me to be partnered with Excalibur, known to all as the Lady of the Lake. So the legendary goddess is here. Naruto muttered as he turned to the direction they were moving in before they had stopped. He could still hear the woman's voice calling out to them with her song. Now he knew why it seemed familiar. It was similar to how he met Saber. He slowly softened his grip and let Saber use her wings to escape his grip. She slowly moved back a bit as she stared at Naruto. And that's why you decided to leave on your own like that. I apologize for that. Saber looked away with a small look of shame on her face. It's just been so long since I've seen her. Naruto nodded his head as he crossed his arms. That's right, you were sealed in that cave for centuries. She must be really important to you, huh? Yes, you see my spirit form to be more exact, was created from her own body and soul. Saber started to smile as she brought her hands together in front of her chest. It may have not been long for the two of us, but for the time until I left with Excalibur and King Arthur, she was my whole world. I see. Naruto uncrossed his arms as he started to walk forward, making his way past a confused Saber. He made it a few feet ahead of her before turning back to look at her with a small smirk. So are you going to float there all day, or are we going to go and see her? Naruto-sama. Saber looked at her master with confusion. You wanted to see her, right? Well, to be the truth, I've always wanted to meet a legendary goddess, though I wonder if that still works with me being a descendant of one of the four great Satans. Naruto brought his hand under his chin as he started to think to himself, making his companion sweat drop a little bit before he spoke again. Besides, I want to meet the person that helped create Excalibur and Avalon. I need to thank her as well. Thank her? For what, Naruto-sama? Saber asked in confusion as she flew back onto Naruto's shoulder, who started walking again. The Lucifer heir gave his tiny friend a smiling side glance before answering, because if she hadn't helped in creating you, we probably wouldn't have met. And you're my comrade as well as one of my best friends, Saber. Saber looked up at Naruto in a silent awe for a few seconds before she smiled brightly at the devil. And I feel the same, Naruto-sama, thank you. The two of them continued in silence, following the voice that seemed to get louder with each step they took. Naruto and Saber soon managed to locate the place where the song and the voice singing it was originating, coming up to a very large lake. It was clearer than anything Naruto had ever seen before. It was beyond pure. He looked up at the sky. The light shining over this area was different from the rest of the forest. Instead of the crimson-red moonlight, the area was covered in a golden-white light. It was strange that he nor any of the others could see such a major difference in the area, until he actually arrived here. This must be because of the Saber's creator, and speaking of which. Naruto turned his attention to the center of the lake, where a figure was standing on the water with her hands clasped together as she continued to sing. That must be. Naruto could hear the woman's song slowly came to an end, and watched as she opened her eyes to look at them. With a smile on her face, she greeted the two. Welcome, young devil, and my precious Avalon. Mother. Saber's eyes once again got teary as she stared at the woman. Her whole body began to tremble for a few seconds before she leaped off Naruto's shoulder and flew towards the goddess, Mother. The woman held out her hands and caught the tiny spirit when she was close enough, before bringing her into a hug with her hands almost covering the girl. It is wonderful to see you as well, my beloved daughter. I am so happy to see you again. I'm so sorry, I couldn't protect Excalibur like you wanted me to. Saber cried out as she held onto the woman's dress. Because of me, it was shattered into pieces, and Arthur was killed. It's alright, what's done is done. Now then, the goddess's gaze went up to the edge of the lake where Naruto was still standing. Why don't you come over here, young devil? I would like to get a good look at the one who now wields my Avalon. Naruto stared at the woman for a few seconds, and slowly nodded his head, extending his wings out before flying over to the woman. He slowly came to a stop a few feet away from the woman, and he quickly noticed how much she and Saber looked alike. The goddess was basically an older, more mature version of Saber, and speaking of the tiny spirit, she was sitting in the goddess's open hands with a smile on her face. Bowing his head a bit, Naruto then spoke up. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am. Raise your head, Naruto Uzumaki Lucifer. As you know, I am the Lady of the Lake, given many names throughout history, but you may call me Vivian if you prefer. The goddess said as she studied Naruto's wings for several seconds, not paying attention to his surprise at her knowing who he was. I see that my sheath's power has affected both your body and abilities. It's because Saber's been with me for so many years, ever since I found her in that cave. Naruto replied as he thought back to the day they met. Yes, the cave she had been sealed in after Excalibur had been shattered. As much as it had pained me to leave her inside that dark place, there was a powerful seal preventing me from entering, which is surprising since there is not many places I can go. Vivian looked down to Saber with a smile, but after you managed to retrieve her from that place, I have kept my eye on her, to make sure she was fine after being alone for so many centuries. And you chose quite the adorable name, Saber Lily. Mother Saber cried out with an embarrassed blush quickly forming on her face. I know, right? I said the same thing. Naruto commented with a chuckle, which only made Saber more flustered as she snapped her head to look at the blonde male. Naruto-sama. Shaking his head a few times, Naruto lowered himself a little more before looking at the woman with a serious expression. If you don't mind me asking, why did you want to come in contact with us now? Because before now neither of you were ready. I knew that you were one of the descendants of Lucifer, yet you hadn't awakened to your true capabilities, and Avalon wasn't mentally prepared. Vivian explained, making Naruto frown a little. Another reason that I will admit to putting off our meeting is because originally I wasn't sure how to categorize you. A being that represents and can use the power of darkness, possessing one of the strongest weapons of light. Anyone in my position couldn't help but feel concerned about a devil having that kind of power. So does this mean you're planning to take Saber with you? Naruto questioned as his body lowered until he was standing on the water. That was my plan when I first discovered that an heir of Lucifer had gotten his hands on her. Naruto felt a sharp blow in his chest when he had heard her say that. Saber had been with him for so long, that imagining life without her seemed empty. Please wait, mother. Saber spoke up as she rose out of Vivian's hands and flew next to Naruto's face, holding her arms out as if to defend him. Naruto-sama is a good person. He would never use my, or even his own powers to harm innocent people. And Naruto-sama believes in protecting people that are precious to him, just like any knight would. He is one of the people I trust most in this world and would stay by his side no matter what. Avalon, do you truly stand by what you say? The goddess asked as she stared at her daughter with a serious look, who stared back with the same hardened gaze. He is a devil after all, and will be forced in the future to make decisions you might not agree with at all. Will you still be okay with that? Despite her mother's words, Saber held strong. It doesn't matter to me if Naruto-sama is a devil, he is the man I swore my loyalty to. And as a knight, no, as a friend, I refuse to abandon him. Naruto and Vivian's eyes widened a little at Saber's words. I'm not just Avalon anymore. I'm not just a sheath to Excalibur and the ultimate defense either. I am Saber Lily, comrade and friend to Naruto-sama. So that is your decision then, Ava Saber Lily? The goddess asked before staring into Saber's eyes, looking for any signs of deceit. After a few minutes she smiled. I'm glad to see you found someone to believe in, and what of you, Naruto? Her azure eyes shifted to Naruto, looking into his crimson ones as if she was staring into his soul. Do you believe in Saber as much as she does you? Lady Vivian, Naruto started to speak as he didn't look away from the goddess's gaze. I trust Saber with my life, and I don't want to lose my partner. Vivian looked between the two with a serious expression before a smile grew on her face. Good. Hi. Naruto and Saber spoke at the same time, both now confused. I never had any intentions of taking Saber away from you when I had called you here. The Lady of the Lake continued to smile as she spoke to the two. I was just saying that to see the reaction you both had, to see how strong the bond between you two was. Now I know what I saw was correct. What you saw, what does that mean? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. My connection with Saber is a lot stronger than you think. When the two of us made physical contact, I was able to see everything she's experienced. Well, a slight watered down, but still. Vivian explained, every person the two of you have seen, what you've talked about, and what she felt during that time. Incredible. So wait, this was basically a test or something? In a way, the goddess nodded her head with a smile. I was sure that you could handle what I wished to request of you and Saber, but after seeing the two of you in front of me and confirming what I believed, I've decided that you two will be perfect for my quest. The quest? You mean like in the Arthurian legends and other legends of heroes? The blonde devil blinked a few times. That's correct. Saber moved a little forward with a light flap of her wings. If you don't mind me asking, Mother, what exactly do you want us to do? The Lady of the Lake's face grew a sad look on her face before raising her hands up with her palms wide open. Before I tell you what I want you both to do, there are two things I need to do first, and I am sorry that you have to see this, Avalon. Saber's eyes were filled with confusion when her mother said that, before both Naruto and her turned their gazes went to the water between them and the goddess. There was a glow from beneath the water as a long object quickly rose from the bottom of the lake. Before emerging from the lake, the object turned itself until it was horizontally lying in the goddess's hands. Saber's eyes widened in horror as the glowing disappeared to reveal a sword. The sword's blade was white with a gray outline, and a small black cross is embroidered on the flat of the blade just beneath the tip, and its handle connected to a handguard that is longer on the right side, too. It can't be Excalibur. The tiny spear flew close to the sword and placed her shaking hands onto the blade. What have they done to you, my friend? After Excalibur had been shattered into pieces and you were sealed, the broken pieces were made into 7 different swords, each containing one of the powers that belonged to the original. Each sword was given the name Excalibur, and the one you see before you is Excalibur Ruler. The goddess continued her explanation, while Saber stared down with tears building up in her eyes. Excalibur Ruler contains the ability of controlling anything the wielder wishes, and it is the most powerful of the 7 blades. Old one, sorry for interrupting, but how come you only have one? Naruto asked as he looked at the sword, amazed at seeing a legendary sword in front of him. What happened with the other 6? I managed to retrieve this one sword almost immediately after it was created, however the other 6 are stored at 3 different churches. Vivian answered with a grim look. It would cause conflict if I were to retrieve the other 6. But the sword belonged to his mother. You were assigned by God to be his keeper and me, its sheath. Saber cried out as she stood on top of the blade. It makes sense in a way. Naruto spoke up, making the 2 turn towards him. 7 different swords in one place, each containing powers that could do a lot of damage if they somehow managed to get into the wrong hands. Though I don't understand why they couldn't just unite Excalibur again into one sword. They didn't even need to seal Saber away. And that is why I bring this sword to you both. Vivian said with a smile as she lifted Excalibur Ruler. The true Excalibur will return to this world one day, and I would like you both to be the ones to do it. You may take Excalibur Ruler and reunite it with its 6 brethren. Once you do that, I will entrust Excalibur to you. But why me? Not that I'm not honored, but didn't you have doubts about me holding Saber? Handing me one of the strongest and legendary holy swords is pretty big. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the blade being offered to him. Would he even be able to hold the fragment of the original? I have seen your soul, heir of Lucifer. Like Saber had said, you are a protector and desire strength to continue protecting others. And with your ties with Avalon, you will have no trouble handling a powerful holy sword such as Excalibur. The older goddess smiled as she extended her hands out to present the sword. Now go on, Naruto, and take the sword. Naruto silently stared at the sword for a minute, before slowly reaching out towards the blade before grabbing onto its handle. He felt the sword pulse in his hand as he tightened his grip, raising it out of the woman's hands before taking a few steps back. He swung the sword around several times before coming to a stop as a thought came to mind as he looked at the blade. The blonde devil concentrated his light magic into the blade first before swinging his sword again. This created a large slash of golden light that cut deep into the water and continued until it made contact with a few trees. Dismissing his light magic, Naruto was about to channel his darkness magic into it before stopping midway. Who knows what would happen if he used darkness with a holy sword? It'd be better to try it out later, when he was training alone or with his grandmother around. You're adjusting to Excalibur Ruler very quickly. Naruto turned back to look at the goddess and his companion, who had a strange smile on her face. Then again, I guess a little of what she's thinking. After all those centuries she was alone, she was able to find a master and reunite with Lady Vivian and Excalibur, well, a piece of it anyway. Naruto thought to himself before looking down at the sword. It was definitely different from the sword he had taken from Freed, but it was to be expected from one of the 2 legendary swords that were once held by the King of Knights himself. Shaking his head a bit, Naruto lowered the sword in his hand and raised his gaze to meet the goddesses. I'll retrieve the rest of the Excalibur swords and unite them back into one blade, though finding a way to do both might take a while. I doubt the churches will let me just have the blades, and I don't even have a clue on how I will turn 7 swords into one. That is true, a task like this would not be easy. Saber said with a nod. Even if it is no longer one sword, they still represent one of the 4 strongest holy swords ever created. As I said before, one day the true Excalibur will return. There are a few people planning on involving the other Excalibur swords in the future. That will be the perfect time for you, and as for bringing them together, I can help you with that. Vivian cupped her hands under Saber's legs and brought her close to her face, before lightly kissing the tiny girl's forehead. Saber suddenly started to glow for a few seconds as the goddess pulled away from her, before the glowing started to die down. I have given a new power to Saber's sheath. This ability would allow you to combine your Excalibur with any that are in a certain range from your location. With a smile on his face, Naruto bowed down a little to the divine woman in front of him. Thank you for everything, Lady Vivian. I will do my best to complete your request with everything I've got. The goddess smiled down at the devil in front of her. He was a lot different from his ancestor, that's for sure. I wish you well on your quest, Naruto Uzumaki Lucifer. And before we part ways, Naruto felt a hand lift his chin up a little before he suddenly felt a pair of soft lips on his forehead. His body glowed for a few seconds before the Lady of the Lake pulled away. I give you my blessings, may not even the deepest ocean stop you from fighting your battles with all your strength. Naruto blinked a few times before he finally understood what she said. He looked down at the water at his feet before looking back at his wings, and silently dismissed them. His feet then fully made contact with the water, but he didn't. He stood over the lake as if he was still on land. This is so cool, I'm actually standing on top of water. Naruto couldn't help but laugh a bit as he jumped a few times as a test, but no matter what happened he didn't sink. He soon straightened himself as Saber flew onto his shoulder. Thank you again Lady Vivian, for both Saber and giving me Excalibur ruler. I guess this is goodbye then. Correct, you should return back to your sister and the Grummery heiress and her peerage, but don't worry you'll see me again. The lower half of the goddess's body started to vanish into the air. I wish you both luck and success on your quest. Goodbye mother. Saber called out with sadness in her voice as they watched the Lady of the Lake disappear from their sights with a smile. The area surrounding them started to change a little as the water was no longer crystal clear, and the light surrounding the lake returned to its crimson glow. And she's gone again. Saber, are you okay? Naruto asked as he looked at the small spirit, who silently looked up at the red moon above them. You know, the two of us will have a lot of work to do if we want to reunite Excalibur. Saber turned her head to see Naruto raised ruler high, a confident smirk on his face, but I know we can do it. I'll do my best to assist you in any way, that is my duty as one of your knights and your friend. Saber said as she wiped the lone tear in her eyes before smiling at her master. Alright then Saber, Naruto lowered his arm before he turned around and started walking toward the shore. Let's return back to the others. Hi Naruto-sama. Those guys sure did move a lot. Naruto commented as he walked down the small path between several trees, following the magical signatures of his group, as he and Saber made their way back to them. He and Saber had placed Excalibur ruler into a pocket dimension, using a magical spell Naruto had learned from Kaguya. It was a simple spell, and very easy to use for even something as powerful as a sword of Excalibur. I wonder if Ashiya-san and Issei-san were able to find familiars, Saber commented from her seat on his shoulder. There's also the chance that Mito-san will be able to find a familiar as well, right? Yeah, that's right. Though she'll probably think of it as a pet, whatever it turns out to be. Naruto silently hoped that his sister wouldn't get something weird, though that might be just what happens. His sister had weird tastes when it came to certain things. We'll just have to wait and see Saber, or do you want to be called Avalon again? Saber shook her head negatively. You may call me whatever you like, remember what I said before. I am Saber Lily as much as I am Avalon, though Saber Lily has grown on me during these past few years. I'm glad, and to be honest calling you Avalon would be a little weird after all this time. Naruto replied with a smile, which caused Saber to smile back. Unfortunately the conversation was interrupted as Naruto came to a quick stop with narrow eyes, before snapping his head to the side, before leaping back as fast as he could. As a roar was heard from behind several trees, it was instantly followed by a large destructive wave of wind. The power of the gust destroyed a great amount of trees before slowly coming to a halt. What the hell was that, wind? You dodged that well. Naruto and Saber turned to follow the voice, and could see a creature walking towards them. Taking a final step forward, Naruto's eyes widened as he got a good look at the beast. At first glance it looked like a large male white lion, but a tiger patterns covering its body. It's been a long time since I've seen a devil this far in the forest. Elijah, an actual Elijah, Naruto exclaimed as he stared at the beast in awe. Elijah? What are you talking about, Naruto-sama? Isn't that a lion? Saber looked between Naruto and the white creature in front of them in confusion. Naruto looked at Saber for a second before focusing it on the Elijah standing several yards away. That's only half correct. Elijah is a mixed breed between a lion and a tiger. They're large cat-like creatures that are incredibly strong and fast. But I would have never guessed that Elijah would actually be in the familiar forest. I came to this forest many years ago, making sure to stay away from all the devils that come by. Elijah slowly walked closer to Naruto as it communicated through a physical connection. But a little while ago I felt a presence come by here, calling out to me, so I decided to see what that presence was. And that presence was me, I'm guessing. The familiar master did say that there were some familiars that were compatible with certain devils. Saber spoke up as she moved off Naruto's shoulder and flew up a little bit. That's true, and having something like this as my familiar would be pretty awesome. Naruto said as he thought back to what Satoji had explained earlier, but why exactly did you attack me? Because if we truly are compatible, then I want to see your potential. Elijah bared his fangs a little as magic surrounded his mane, and wind swirled around it. I refuse to have a weak master. Raising his hand a little, he lightly pushed Saber back. So I guess that means you want me to prove that I would be a strong master, am I right? Correct, now then, show me your power. Raising its head back a little, the magic surrounding him spiked before letting out a powerful roar. The roar was so strong that it forced Naruto to bring his arms up to cover his head, as it made him take a step back. Just the strength of his roar was able to push me back a little, Naruto thought with wide eyes before a grin appeared on his face. That settles it, I want him to be my familiar. Bringing his arms down, Naruto unleashed his own magical power to cancel out the sonic wave slamming into him. Alright, I'll show you my power. Good. I'd hate to kill a non-responsive opponent. The wind surrounding the light shot towards Naruto in the form of crescent blades. Naruto summoned a light shield to block the wind blades, and jumped upward into the air, before creating several weapons of light and darkness around him. Interesting, you certainly are a unique devil. You haven't seen anything yet. Naruto shouted as he sent all the weapons down at the lighter, which stood completely still as it stared up at the incoming weapons, before its eyes flashed for a second, and a wall of blue wind blocked all the weapons. Naruto blinked in amazement for barely a few seconds before the lighter used the wind to turn the weapons back towards him, before firing them all back at the blonde devil. You have to do better than that, devil. Naruto narrowed his eyes before holding his hands out, and concentrated his light and darkness magic into 2 orbs in each palm, slamming them together as the weapons got close, and created a giant sphere of light and darkness around him that destroyed the weapons, making a lot of smoke from the collisions. He has enough control over light and darkness that he can use them together. Naruto's figure emerged from the smoke, and he dived towards the lighter, the Excalibur ruler appearing in his hand. So you have a holy sword as well. You continue to impress me more and more. The lighter's claws started to glow as it began running along the ground, before leaping off the ground with the claw stretched out. The Lucifer heir said nothing as he channeled his light magic into his sword, making it glow a little as he raised before swinging it down. A large wave of golden energy emerged from the blade, and slammed into the lighter's claw. Just as it was about to strike, the 2 attacks created a golden explosion that covered both of them. The lighter landed on the ground, slipping a little as it felt some pain from a fresh wound created from Naruto's attack. The white beast didn't have time to think about it, as Excalibur ruler pierced the ground right in front of him, making him follow the blade, until he saw Naruto standing over him with an orb of energy in his right hand. But this one was different from the ones before. This one was made up of both light and darkness, and seemed to be spinning in multiple directions at once. This is my win, or so you want to continue. Naruto lifted the sword out of the ground and took a step back as he continued to look at the lighter. No, you have proven you are a strong devil, one that will only continue to grow as you experience more. The lighter grunted as he bowed his head a little, standing straight as he moved closer to the devil. So what do you say? Do you want to be my familiar? Naruto offered as he dismissed the spinning orb in his hand. The attack was actually still in its testing phase. There was no clue to what the results would be. The lighter stared deep into Naruto's eyes before giving him a nod. Yes, it would be an honor. That's great, Naruto said as he reached out and started petting the lighter's head, but taking notice to the injury he had inflicted on it. Hold on, Naruto moved a hand over the wound and sent some of Saber's healing power into the lighter's wound, covering it in a light golden glow for a few seconds, before it died down to reveal that the wound was completely healed. There you go, good as new. Looking down at the healed injury, the white hybrid nodded to himself. That is a very incredible healing power. Yeah, it's thanks to Saber here. The tiny spirit moved in front of the lighter and gave it a small head bow. It's a pleasure to meet you. Interesting, you're a unique little thing, aren't you? Saber's eyes narrowed a bit at the little comment, but didn't say anything. Anyway, we should head back to the group. Saber, Bester, let's get moving. The 2 turned to look at the blonde Lucifer with tilts of the head. What? Bester, are you talking about me? The newly named Bester questioned, making Naruto rub the back of his head. Of course, though if you already have a name we could call you that instead. Bester shook his head. No, it is fine. You may call me Bester. Awesome, so like I was saying before, let's get going you 2. Naruto said with a smirk before he started walking away, Bester and Saber following right behind him, and managed to make it to his sides as they continued down a path. Naruto was eager to see the others and see what familiars Ashia and Mito had chosen, and show off Bester as well. A little while later. What the hell? This was the first thing Naruto said as soon as he and his companions had an interesting scene. Several feet away from them was the group alright, but Rias, Akeno, Ashia, and Kaneko all had some weird green slime covering different areas on their bodies, and it was melting away their clothes, while keeping their arms immobile. A little ways away Kiba was swinging his blade around blindly as some of the slime covered his face. He quickly took notice to Issei and the familiar master standing to the side. The latter had some slime covering his eyes, while Issei didn't seem to have any on him, just a perverted grin on his face and blood gushing from his nose. Mito was currently hiding behind a tree as watched with a scared look as more slime fell down from the trees. Naruto. Akeno tried to speak as she took notice to Naruto staring at them, but let out a moan when the slime tightened a little around her. The sound of her moaning out from pleasure made Naruto raise an eyebrow. It seemed Akeno had a masochistic side as well. Help us, we can't use our magic like this. Ryuz cried out as the slime dissolved her uniform completely and was already eating through her undergarments. The same thing was happening to Kaneko and a teary-eyed Ashia. Naruto nodded his head and was about to move when Issei stepped in front of him. No. Please wait, Naruto-senpai. I decided that I want to make this slime my familiar. They say, there are several reasons why wait a minute, that thing's a familiar, Naruto exclaimed as he pointed to the girl struggling with the green slime. But before Sayers Atauji could say anything, Naruto turned his head. Never mind, I don't care. Get rid of those things, Bester, but make sure not to hurt the others. Of course. The others took notice to the large white creature walking up from behind Naruto, and reared its head back, before letting out a gust-based roar. This one was red in color as it passed by everyone and everything that was covered by the green slime. The roar soon came to an end as Bester closed his mouth, and the results were almost instant, as all the slimes turned to stone and crumbled into dust. Worthless pests of the forest indeed. Good job, it looks like I'm not the only one that have unique abilities. Naruto commented as he patted Bester's head before turning to look at Ashiya, who luckily had the most clothes at the moment. Are you okay, Ashiya-chan? Ashiya-nichan. Mito made her way to the blonde girl. Yes, I'm okay, Naruto-naisan, Mito-chan. Ashiya nodded her head before she and Mito turned to Bester. Who is that? Mito asked with a tilt of the head. Is he your familiar Oni-chan? That's right, this is Bester. Naruto answered as he took his hand off the lighter, and as you can see, he's pretty powerful. Bester, these are my sisters, Ashiya-chan and Mito-chan. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Bester said with a small bow of his head. Meanwhile, Rias and the others were staring at results of Bester's attack in awe, or horror in Issei's case. After a minute or so, the girls then retreated to get new clothes via magical circle summoning, while the brunette started to tear up a little before he felt something smack the back of his head. He turned his head to see Naruto giving him a look. Now back to before. Why were you just standing there when the girls had that slime all over them? Because I had decided to make that slime my familiar, and now it's gone. Issei cried out as tears fell down his face. Naruto's eyebrow twitched as he stared at Issei before letting out a sigh and patted his shoulder. There, I'm sure you'll find something good later on. Naruto said as he looked away awkwardly. He may have grown to respect Issei a little and see him as a friend, but the guy was still a huge pervert. As he looked away, he could see Zatauji looking at Bester with a shocked look. Hey, is something wrong? Why are you staring at Bester like that? This is a Sky Storm Lighter, the familiar master cried out as he started moving around Bester with a fascinated look. I've never seen one up close before, they're rare even among super rare. It's incredibly powerful and very hard to tame. You picked an amazing familiar. I guess it shouldn't be surprising you found something like this, Ria said as she and the girls walked back to the group after several minutes, fully clothed. Kaneko walked closer to Bester and stared at him for a few seconds before reaching out and started to pet him. I'm glad to see you were able to find something extraordinary in the forest. You have no idea, Rias-chan. Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Akeno asked as she looked away from Bester to the blonde Lucifer. Where's Mito-chan? Naruto replied as he studied the area around them, instantly taking notice to a certain 11-year-old was missing from the group. Ayaz perked up as she heard that and looked around to see that Mito had indeed disappeared. That's strange, she was just standing here with Kaneko-chan. Mito-chan, where are you? Ashiya called out as she and the others looked for any sign of the red-haired girl. Meanwhile, up in one of the trees above, a small creature silently stared down at Ashiya, as she looked around worriedly for Mito, narrowing its eyes a bit when one of the males in the group got close. Mito-chan. Where'd you go, kid? Mito-san. As Kaneko looked through the trees, she was able to catch Mito's scent, and took a few steps where it was the strongest before finding herself coming up to a large figure between two trees. A second later she felt something breathing on top of her, making her look up to see two red eyes staring down at her. Kaneko couldn't help but take a leap back as she felt the hairs on her neck stand up, and taking a good look at the creature she could understand why she felt like this. It was a hydra, though it was different from the one in books. This one only had one head. But even so, it was still a large creature. Its head alone was almost as big as her. She didn't have time to study it anymore, as the hydra's head shifted around a little before moving closer to Kaneko with its mouth open. Venom was dripping from its fangs. Just as the white-haired girl braced herself, a voice spoke up. Stop, Kichi, she's not bad. She's a friend. Kaneko blinked a few times at the familiar voice, a little dumbstruck when the hydra stopped as it reached a foot away from Kaneko, and stared at her for a few seconds, before giving her a quick leg across her face. Wiping her face, she looked up and saw Mito sitting on its back, before she leaped off and moved to where its head was, and gave the hydra a stern look. Bad Kichi, you don't just attack people like that. The hydra let out a small whine towards Mito as if it was apologizing, making the girl smile a little before she patted it on the head. Mito-chan. The two girls turned to see Naruto, and the others were making their way over to them, and as soon as they got close, Naruto and Ashiya immediately went to Mito's side. I was worried about you, don't run off like that. Are you okay, Mito-chan? Ashiya asked as she looked over the girl with a worried look. I'm fine, Ashiya-nichan. Mito replied with a smile before pointing over to the creature beside them, and look, I got my own familiar, I call him Kichi. Mito-chan, is that what I think it is? Rias called out to her, making the younger Reddit turn to look at her. The Grimoire heirs stared at Kichi with a look of shock, before turning to the familiar master. That's a hydra, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Zataoji had a shocked look on his face as he stared at the beast. It looks like it's a baby though. Their young usually start out with one head. One head? You mean like from those old Greek stories with the hydra that grows two heads for each one it loses? Issei asked. Zataoji nodded his head. That's right, but the hydra you see before you is the baby of the nine-headed hydra. When they are born, the hydra starts off with one head and obtain more as they grow older and more powerful. They have a deadly poison that devils fear and an immortal body, and are very powerful familiars, but as I said before, most nine-headed hydras are known to be the more evil familiars, because they kill their own masters. The familiar master continued his explanation, while Naruto had wary eyes on Kichi. However, this is the first time someone has found a baby hydra. It is more than possible that that girl will have an incredible familiar in the future. All eyes seemed to shift to Kichi, who was silent the whole time while rubbing gently into Mito's back. He doesn't seem like a dangerous familiar right now, it's more like he's playful. Naruto commented as he watched Mito pat Kichi's head. Tell me Zataoji, will Mito-chan be in extreme danger if she does make him her familiar? Given the age of the hydra and its behavior, I would say she won't have too much trouble with it. Maybe a few things when it gets older and grows more heads. Zataoji told the blonde as they looked at the hydra. But because it's so young, there is a better chance of it staying loyal to her. Mito halted her petting of Kichi's head then turned to Naruto with sad eyes. Oni-chan, can I keep Kichi? He's really cool and I promise to be careful. She named one of the most dangerous familiars that a devil can have, Kichi. This thought went through a few heads as Naruto had a calculative look on his face. You know Naruto-kun, he turned to Rias who was also looking at Kichi and Mito, as the hydra rubbed its head against her affectionately. Her having a hydra as a familiar can be very useful, it can also help protect her when you're not around. That made Naruto nod his head in agreement as he thought about how true that was. As much as he didn't want to admit it, he knew there were going to be times in the future that he would be in a completely different place than Mito and Ashi could be. Even while the two girls were training under their mother, having a powerful familiar was a good guardian. Alright Mito-chan, you can keep him as your familiar. But, Naruto interrupted her just as she was about to cheer. If there is any signs of him attacking either you, someone we know, or any innocent people, I will get rid of it, no matter what it takes. Understood? Yes, I understand. Mito nodded her head as she looked at her brother, who stared back for a few seconds before a smile grew on his face. She smiled back before turning back to the hydra and hugged its head tightly, which it fully enjoyed as it pushed back with its eyes closed. It's pretty big for a baby, isn't it? Kiba commented as they watched the redeed hanging onto the hydra's head as it lifted itself a bit into the air, laughing the whole time. That is to be expected with how large they can get when they are older, but baby hydras have a special ability. As he said that, Kichi started to glow a bit before suddenly vanishing from sight, making Mito fall to the ground. The girl lifted herself with a huff as she looked around and was surprised, as well as the other devils, to see that Kichi had shrunk to the size of a medium-sized dog. They can adjust their size on demand to suit their surroundings and situation. You did that on purpose, didn't you Kichi? Mito exclaimed as she pointed at the excited-looking hydra, who was wagging its tail about. You are so lucky I am focusing on how awesome you are. Kichi only nuzzled into her body in response. After a few minutes Mito completed the contract to make Kichi her familiar, and Issei couldn't help but sigh as he and the others watched Naruto and Mito with their familiars. Is something wrong Issei-san? Ashia asked as she tilted her head in confusion. The brunette seemed to be depressed ever since they saw the Undines, which got worse after the slime had been destroyed. Are you still mad about Naruto Niasen and Bester destroying that slime? A little, what am I saying? Of course I am, Issei cried out with tears building up in his eyes. I have found the perfect partner for me, and it was destroyed. You're the first devil I met that wanted a pest of the forest to be their familiar this badly. Zataoji said while an amused look, while Rias shook her head in embarrassment. Naruto's eyebrow twitched as he looked at Rias' pawn, Issei. The brunette froze as he recognized the tone in Naruto's voice, as he slowly turned to face him, just in time to see a familiar dark aura surround him, as a large Hanyu mask formed behind him. This one was red in color, as it zoomed close to Issei. You do remember what Rias-chan said about choosing your familiars wisely, correct? You shouldn't waste such choices based on your carnal desires. Hi Naruto-senpai, I remember. Issei replied as he tried to hide behind Ashia, who shook a little as the mask's eyes glinted in her direction. Watching this scene from several feet away, Rias and the others could only wonder one thing, just who was it that taught Naruto how to do this? Meanwhile, a female figure was sitting on top of a roof, staring up at the stars with a peaceful smile on her face. Suddenly she let out a small sneeze before looking around a few times. Oh my, I should probably get down now, the cold air must be getting to me. Back to the group. Issei's attempts to hide were cut short as he was struck by a bolt of lightning, separating him from an unharmed Ashia as he fell to the ground. The rest of the group looked up to see a small purple dragon flying in a circle above Ashia, before it dove down and landed on her shoulder. The sprite dragon. Those are pretty rare. The familiar master exclaimed as he studied the creature on Ashia's shoulder. They only attack things that they see as an enemy. It must have thought the boy was attacking her or something. A sprite dragon. Ashia repeated the name as she reached up towards the little dragon, who moved into her hands instantly before latching onto her. It's so adorable. Hold on, if it thought Issei was an enemy to Ashia-san, Kiba started to say as he looked at the dragon. That's right, it seems you were able to find your familiar as well, young lady. Zataoji said with a smile. Naruto could help but smile as he moved over to Ashia and patted the girl on the head. Looks like the three of us picked some interesting familiars, huh? Ashia smiled back at Naruto, enjoying the small moment of finding a cute familiar and being praised by her brother, though it came to an end when Naruto spoke up again. Is he growling at me? Ashia looked at the dragon in her arms and saw it was gathering lightning around its body, growling a little at Naruto. Hold on, Raito-kun. This is my brother, and Naruto Naisan would never hurt me. The lightning around the small dragon seemed to calm itself a little bit, staring at Naruto as if it was judging him. After a few seconds the sprite dragon nodded its head before resting against Ashia's grip. Looks like you're a real lucky one, Blondie. Naruto looked back at Zataoji with a confused look. Male dragons hate males of other species. The fact that it accepts you near the female it chose is a pretty rare thing. Interesting, well at least I know that he'll keep creeps and perverts away from her. Naruto said before remembering what Ashia had called the dragon. You're naming it Raito. Ashia nodded her head happily as she held her familiar close. That's right, I named him Rai because he uses lightning attacks, and I took the other part out of your name. That's a good name. Ria said as she walked over to Ashia's side to look at the sprite dragon. It's nice to meet you, Raito. This is great, Ashia-nichan. The two of us and Ani-chan were able to find our familiars. Mito said from her spot on Kichi's back, riding on top of her familiar with a smile. It slowly went down a little as she turned her gaze to the side, though I don't think Issei-senpai is doing so well. The others turned to see Issei was sitting in a depressed position. Slatter, why did you have to die? He wailed as tears fell down his face. He had given it a name. Kiba raised an eyebrow at the brunette. I will never forget you and your awesome powers. Kaneko just stared at Issei with a blank stare before speaking. Death to perverts. A few days later, Ryuz could only stare at Naruto in shock as he placed Excalibur ruler on the table. It was after school and the rest of the club members had already left, leaving Naruto and Ryuz to discuss what had happened during the time he had separated from the group. So you actually met the Lady of the Lake in the familiar forest, and she requested that you reunite Excalibur. That's it in a nutshell. Naruto replied as he looked at the sword resting on the table in front of them. The two devils were sitting on one of the couches. She already gave me the first sword, so now I have to get the other 6. Easier said than done. It would be almost impossible for you to retrieve the other swords from the churches. And the fact remains that even attempting something like that could cause conflict between the two factions. Ryuz crossed her arms as she lifted one of her legs over the other. Naruto nodded his head in agreement. I said the exact same thing. That's why I'm not going to try and handle it immediately. I'll just take advantage of the situation if it presents itself. The blonde devil said as he picked up ruler and sealed it away in his pocket dimension. Lady Vivian had said that the other swords would appear later on, so all he could do was wait until they do. For now, I'll just work on making myself stronger and getting used to using Excalibur ruler. The best course of actions at this point. If you need any help, just let me know. Ryuz gave Naruto a smile, which he returned with a nod. The Redeed unlocked her legs and closed her eyes before leaning on Naruto's side, surprising him a bit. Ryuz-chan. It's been a while since we've been like this, Ryuz commented as she continued to lean on Naruto. We were like this after you became a devil. To think things would become like this. Naruto closed his own eyes as he thought about all the stuff that had been happening since he learned about the supernatural world from Saber. It's hard to believe that 3 months have gone by since I first learned about the 3 factions, and over 2 months since I became a devil. Naruto slowly opened his eyes as something that had been bothering for a while came to mind. Ryuz-chan. Yes, Naruto-kun. The Grimoire heiress opened her eyes and lifted her head to look up at the blonde, and noticed the serious look he was giving her. Is something wrong? I should be the one asking that. Naruto replied as he turned his body to completely face her. For the last few weeks you've been acting strangely, like something is bothering you and getting worse with each passing day. So I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to tell me what's wrong. Ryu's eyes widened a bit at what Naruto had said. She wasn't expecting him to ask her this now. She wasn't ready. The Bussiere Deed wanted to say something, anything to change the topic from that. But then her conversation with Kaguya came to mind. No, she had to tell him. The sooner the better. Alright Naruto-kun, I'll tell you. Naruto noticed that Ria's hand moved to his and gripped it tightly, which he reciprocated as he focused on the redeeded devil he had known for so many months. Thank you. With a deep breath, Ryuz collected her thoughts before speaking. It all started with an agreement between my family and another devil household known as the House of Phoenix. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. and also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.